You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Do you ever have a kiddo pop into your office last minute and you need an activity to do quickly? Or do you ever wish you had access to hundreds of school counseling resources at your fingertips? Well, my Impact School Counselor membership is for you. Inside Impact, you get access to hundreds of resources sorted by topic, tier, season, or monthly lesson plans. Simply log on, find what you need, download it, and use it with your students right away. You also get access to our community where you can meet like-minded school counselors to troubleshoot tough cases, get inspired, and collaborate with your colleagues. Not only that, we also know how important it is to stay on top of your professional development. That's why we offer live quarterly trainings on hot topics that you need most. Impact is designed to make your counseling life easier. I know you're super busy. That's why I've made it super simple to access everything you need in one place. This way you can spend your time and energy doing what you love the most, helping kiddos. If you're looking for a one-stop shop for all of your counseling needs so you don't have to worry about searching on different sites, paying for things here and there, you can find everything you need on demand in one place in Impact. Head over to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/impact to watch a sneak peek video behind the scenes of what all is included in the membership. Again, that's stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/impact to get started today. I can't wait to help you make an impact. Happy New Year, and thank you for listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. Yay! It is 2024, and I cannot wait to see what this year holds for us. So in this first episode of the new year, I want to do a few different things. I want to start with, of course, you guessed it, some New Year's goal setting, but it'll be a little different than you might think. It's goal setting specific for school counselors. Then I want to talk about my word of the year, and I would love to hear your word of the year as well. And I'm going to go through an Ask Me Anything, go through some frequently asked questions that I get. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive right in. First up, goal setting. So when it comes to goal setting, I was thinking back on past episodes that I've done at the start of the year, and a lot of times I will say my personal goals or goals for a school counseling program, but this time I'm deciding to break it up by each tier and to give you some very specific goals that I'd like you to achieve. Of course, this is totally on your own if you feel like it, if you feel like you're overwhelmed and not in the space to take on anything else. Obviously, take care of yourself and don't push it. But if you are like, I want some goals related to my career, I want some challenges and some direction, but I don't know where to start, then this is for you. First up, tier 1. When it comes to your classroom lessons, my goal for you is to go into every class at least once a month. Now, for some of you, you may already be doing that and you're meeting your goal, but for others of you, that may seem really overwhelming. And so I'm going to answer a question here in a bit about scheduling, and I think it'll help you. But I challenge you and encourage you to go into every classroom at least once a month to try to show face and make connections with these kiddos. So even if you weren't able to do this at the first half of the year, now is the time to start. Now let's talk about small groups. My challenge for you in small groups is to get the students to do some type of reflection. So the first thing I think of is journaling, right? This is something a lot of us skip or overlook or kind of wait for the last 5 minutes and it's super rushed. But journaling can be so powerful, and after a really engaging activity, the self-reflection piece of the group is where you can see a lot of change take place. So I really don't want you to skip that. I want you to prioritize self-reflection, whether that be through discussion or journaling, take it out the door, however you want to do it. There's a podcast episode we'll link to where I interview my friend Megan. She's a literacy expert, and she talks all about how we can use journaling in school counseling. Okay, tier 3, this is for you, individual counseling. Okay, this one's a little out of the box. It's not something I want you to do with the students, rather, but it's what I want you to do with everyone else. So I want you to think about a wraparound support. So think about parents. How can you be more in touch with parents regarding their child's progress in individual counseling? Whether that's kind of mini homework assignments they can do as a family, ways they can support their child, related resources, connecting them with community resources, anything like that. And then the teacher, how can you support the teacher? So maybe you're doing push-in support through the classroom, assisting in a behavior plan, just meeting with the teacher to find out how you can better help the student in your one-on-one sessions. So instead of thinking about a goal to do with the student themselves, I want you to think about how you can help support the parents and teachers, which in turn will support the student. So supplementing that with what you're already doing in your individual sessions, hopefully you will see some big results. And then this one's not a tier, this is just data collection. I encourage you to start tracking data. So if you feel overwhelmed, I'm actually, again, in one of the questions I'm going to get to, give you some really easy strategies, easy places to get started. But this is your year for data tracking. So I want you to really try it. Just if it feels overwhelming to track data for everyone, just pick one group or one individual student that you want to start assessing. And I think you're going to find it to be really rewarding and kind of fun. It almost gamifies your program. So those are my goals, rather challenges for you in 2024 as a school counselor. So let me know how you feel about those and how I can support you with those. Now, moving on, let's chat about my word of the year. So I like to do a word of the year. And this year, my word is connection. Now, the reason I chose this word is because a lot of times as school counselors, we feel like we're on our own islands. We feel very isolated. You may be the only one at your school site, maybe even the only one of a few in your district. And so it's so important that we connect with each other. One way I love to connect with counselors is, this is more of a parasocial relationship, but through the podcast or through social media, through my blog. But I love to, really connect and get feedback back and forth from each other in Impact, right? So in my Impact membership, we have our community calls, and I just love our community of counselors there, and that's a great way to connect. So I invite you to join us there if you're interested in Impact. But if not, anytime you can just, like I said, through the podcast or reading blog posts or just to feel affirmed, to feel seen, to feel validated, to feel inspired. It's so important that we connect with each other. So that's on a professional level, why my word of the year is connection. Now, on a personal level, my word of the year is connection because I am making an active effort to make more friends in my real life. So I have lived in Costa Rica for 5 years, but we still travel back to the States a lot, and I have all my best friends from the States. And I still talk to them all the time, and I feel, that my friendship cup is filled. But I noticed that I was kind of finding a gap, in my day-to-day interactions. I had neighbors and acquaintances, but a day-to-day good friend. I was we have a couple friend that we hung out with a lot, but I was I want some more mom friends. And anyone who has young children may know that it can be kind of isolating. There's I see kids and moms everywhere, but everyone's just so busy all the time, and we're not sleeping. I mean, you can't really have a girls' night as often as you want. So anyways, I just decided a few months ago, I was I'm going to make this a priority. And oh my gosh, it was overnight, my calendar was booked. I think I got a little too aggressive. I was I'm joining a gym, I'm scheduling a play day, I'm volunteering at this thing. But anyways, I was just I'm going to put myself out there. I listened to another podcast, and I read a book by Laura Tremaine. I like her podcast, 10 Things to Tell You, and she has a book about adult female friendships. I'll link to it in the show notes as well. I cannot think of the name right now. Oh, The Life Council. And it was so inspiring and good. So anyways, that's just my little personal, get vulnerable with you guys, thing that I am trying, and it has been so rewarding and so fun, and honestly, easier and more effortless than I thought. I'm what was I doing for the past year? I just needed to get, off my screens and into real life and make new connections with people. So connection, that is my word of the year. And presence is my second backup word. Always trying to be more present as a multitasker, and constantly thinking of one thing while I'm doing another, and how to maximize my productivity. In an effort to be more productive, I lose out on presence sometimes. So I always am trying to be more present, and I'm currently reading The Power of Now, which I know is an old book. It's been on my to-do read list forever, but finally reading that one. So connection with a side of presence. That's what I'm bringing into 2024. I would love to hear what you are bringing into 2024. Please let me know. Send me a message on Instagram at Bright Futures Counseling, or send me an email, Rachel@brightfutures-counseling.com. I would love to connect with you guys. Okay. So we talked about our goals and challenges and words of the year. let's get into the Ask Me Anything. Now, these are 3 questions that I'm frequently asked, so I thought I would hit on these. First up, people ask me all the time how I got a job in Costa Rica at an international school. So as many of you know, I moved here in 2019, and obviously it's a pretty desirable place to live. We have beaches and monkeys and volcanoes and jungles and sloths and surfing and all the things. It's a very beautiful country, beautiful people, and I'm so happy to live here. After having my first son, Marin, and then now I have 2 kiddos, I am no longer at the school. I'm just working full-time serving counselors through my blog, podcast, and impact membership, and training them and supporting them there. But I did work at the international school, and people ask me all the time, like, I want to work at an international school. How do I do it? And to be honest, I have a whole blog post about this that I'll link in the show notes. But basically, y'all, the stars just aligned for me. I was already thinking about returning to Costa Rica and kind of settling down there. And then through like a friend of a friend of a friend, I met this woman who's my friend Tyra, and she worked at the international school as the curriculum director and algebra teacher. And she told me they were hiring a counselor and if I was interested, and it just all worked out. I was already, serving counselors through my membership and TPT and podcasts and everything. So it was a part-time position, which ended up being perfect for my life at that time. And honestly, she just reached out to me. It kind of fell in my lap. But I do know there are agencies that some people have told me that they use. But what I would recommend is just going to the state or the country that you're interested in, like if you want to move, and just, find the country that you're interested in and Google international schools. Like in Costa Rica, there aren't very many. And then you could, just reach out to them directly. Unfortunately, these schools do tend to have a lot of turnover because people will move and try it out and then move somewhere else. Sometimes it attracts like transient type teachers. There are a lot of like young single people who are like, I'll try Costa Rica for a few years and I'm going to go to Bali or whatever. That being said, I met some amazing people through the job, people from all over the world, and students from all over the world. So super cool experience. If you have the freedom, flexibility, and boldness to pursue an international school abroad, I encourage it. So anyways, that's kind of how I found my job. I'll link to the blog post in the show notes. It is a little more detailed and has a crazy story about how it all started by getting mugged in Morocco. Okay. Next up, a question that I get asked all the time is, how am I supposed to do it all, Rachel? Scheduling. How am I supposed to do class lessons, individual sessions, small groups, parent meetings, 504, recess duty, all the things? And break it down step by step. So in my stress-free school counseling course, I talk about this a lot, but I talk about starting with what has to happen first and what involves the most people. So if you think about it, class lessons, that's involving all kinds of people, you, the teachers, and all the students. It's a lot of moving parts, right? So I suggest scheduling those first, and those are like your big building blocks of your schedule. So using Calendly or some kind of sign up to getting these scheduled in advance. Now you have those on your calendar. Then I want you to visually imagine it, like, okay, look at my calendar, I have all these blocks of class lessons. Now, what's the thing that involves the next amount of people? Small groups. So that involves, multiple teachers that you're coordinating with. Not as many as class lessons, but still multiple. So you're going to find out their preferred times, and then you're going to, kind of fill those in around the class lessons. And then lastly, individual, you're just kind of coordinating with one person. So that's a little easier, and you can just slide those little guys in all over. And then, of course, there's things you don't get to choose, like, duties or meetings or things like that. And so those will have to go in there as well. But if you kind of build your calendar that way, it's a little less overwhelming. And then I always recommend that you build in buffer time and a planning period for yourself and like some prep time. So that is what I would recommend when it comes to scheduling. And I always recommend doing things in advance. And for example, if you have a group, go ahead and schedule at the same time, day of the week, for 6 to 8 weeks. If you have your class lessons, you can either have teachers sign up each month, like I said, using something like Calendly, or you can just do reoccurring lessons. Like, okay, first Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m., you got it, and then have them reoccur. So that's a better way to kind of keep, a hold of your schedule, because it can get crazy. But I definitely recommend having it all out on your calendar. And I always prefer digital calendar, because then you can have it like on your watch or your phone or whatever if you're out and about and someone has a question about their time. And my last question that I get asked a lot is all about data tracking tools. So people are constantly asking me, how do I track data? How do I get started? I want to, but I don't know what to do. And I always recommend you could start with a self-assessment. So I have a lot of a lot of data tools like behavior surveys that I love. But for the purpose of getting started, let's just go with a self-assessment. So I want you to think about the student you're meeting with and the topic you're meeting with them on, and the objective for each session. So for example, if you're meeting with them for self-control, maybe the objectives are to define self-control, to select self-control coping strategies, to identify people who can support them in self-control. Then you would write a corresponding self-assessment with statements that are true or false matching those objectives. I'll link to some self-assessment templates that I have in the show notes. Okay guys, I hope you found this episode helpful. Happy New Year. I hope you have an amazing 2024, and I can't wait to see the amazing impact that you have on your students. Talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.